the royal who wore a mask his entire life in the grand palace of Versailles, where kings ruled with absolute power and secrets lurked behind every gilded door, there lived a prisoner unlike any other in history. His name was lost to time, his face hidden forever behind a mask of black velvet, and his identity became one of the greatest mysteries of the French monarchy. This is the story of the man in the iron mask. Picture, if you will, the year 1669. Louis XIV, the Sun King, ruled France with magnificent splendor. His court was the envy of Europe, his palace a testament to royal power. But in the shadows of this glittering world, a secret prisoner was being transported under the strictest security imaginable. The prisoner's name was Eustache Dogger, though this may not have been his real name. What made him extraordinary was not just his mysterious identity, but the unprecedented precautions taken to keep him hidden. He was forced to wear a mask of black velvet whenever anyone might see him. The mask covered his entire face, leaving only his eyes visible through carefully cut holes. But why such extreme measures for one man? The orders came directly from the king's minister, François-Michel Letellier, Marquis de Louvois. The instructions were chilling in their precision. If the prisoner ever spoke of anything other than his immediate needs, he was to be killed immediately. If anyone saw his face, that person would also face death. The secrecy surrounding this man was absolute. Dogger was first imprisoned at Pignerol, a fortress in the Alps, under the care of Bénigne d'Auvergne de Saint-Mars, a man who would become his lifelong jailer. Saint-Mars was no ordinary prison keeper. He was trusted with the most sensitive political prisoners of the realm, and his loyalty to the crown was unquestionable. For years, Dogger lived in complete isolation. He was provided with fine clothes, good food, and comfortable accommodations, treatment reserved for prisoners of high rank. Yet he remained a ghost, a shadow behind velvet, his true identity known only to a handful of the most powerful men in France. As the years passed, Saint-Mars was promoted and transferred to different fortresses, and wherever he went, his masked prisoner followed. From Pignerol to Exilles, from Exilles to the island fortress of Sainte Marguerite off the coast of Cannes. Each move was conducted with the same extraordinary secrecy. Witnesses spoke of seeing a figure in a sedan chair, his face completely covered, surrounded by guards with orders to shoot anyone who came too close. The very sight of this mysterious procession struck fear into the hearts of those who glimpsed it. Who was this man whose face was considered so dangerous that it could never be revealed? In 1698, Saint-Mars received his final promotion to the governorship of the Bastille, the most feared prison in Paris, and with him came his eternal prisoner, now an old man who had spent nearly 30 years behind a mask. The Bastille was different from the remote mountain fortresses where Dogger had been held. It was in the heart of Paris, and secrets were harder to keep. Stories began to spread among the guards and servants. They spoke of a prisoner who was treated with unusual respect, who dined with silver plates and wore the finest clothes, yet whose face no living person had seen. Some said they heard the prisoner weeping at night. Others claimed he was allowed to walk in the fortress gardens, but only at hours when no other soul was present. The mask, they whispered, was never removed, not even when he ate or slept alone in his cell. But who was he really? The theories were as numerous as they were fantastic. Some believed he was the twin brother of Louis XIV himself, born moments after the king, but kept secret to avoid a succession crisis. The physical resemblance, they claimed, was so striking that seeing his face would immediately reveal the shocking truth. Others whispered he was the real father of Louis XIV, suggesting that the Queen Mother had had an affair and that the man on the throne was illegitimate. The masked prisoner, in this theory, was the rightful King of France, kept alive but hidden to prevent civil war. More exotic theories proposed he was an English nobleman, perhaps even connected to the Duke of Monmouth, the illegitimate son of King Charles II of England. International intrigue, secret treaties, and diplomatic scandals all featured in these speculations. Some historians suggested he might have been Nicolas Fouquet, the former finance minister who had been arrested for embezzlement and whose fate had been mysteriously obscured. Others proposed he was Ercole Mattioli, an Italian count who had betrayed Louis XIV in a territorial dispute. The most romantic theory claimed he was the biological father of the famous musketeer D'Artagnan, adding a swashbuckling element to an already incredible story. But perhaps the truth was simpler and yet more profound than any of these theories. Modern historians, examining the evidence with careful scrutiny, believe that Eustache Dogger was likely a valet or servant who had learned state secrets too dangerous to be revealed. In an age when kings ruled by divine right, and any challenge to royal authority could topple kingdoms, even a servant's knowledge could be catastrophically dangerous. The mask, which historical records suggest was actually made of black velvet, not iron as later legends claimed, served a dual purpose. It hid his identity and transformed him into a symbol of royal power. The very extremity of the precautions taken created an aura of mystery that served the monarchy's interests. Think about it. In an age before photographs or mass media, faces were how people were recognized. By hiding this man's face completely, the authorities ensured that even if he escaped, he could disappear into any crowd. The mask made him simultaneously the most famous and most anonymous prisoner in France. On November 19, 1703, after 34 years of imprisonment, the man in the iron mask died in his cell at the Bastille. Even in death, the secrecy continued. His cell was immediately searched, the walls scraped, and replastered to remove any message he might have scratched into the stone. His possessions were burned, his bed linens destroyed. He was buried quickly and quietly in the cemetery of St. Paul's Champs under the name Marchiali, possibly a corruption of Mattioli, adding yet another layer to the mystery. The authorities seemed determined that nothing of him should survive to tell his story. But they could not destroy the legend they had created. The story of the man in the iron mask captured imaginations across Europe. Voltaire wrote about him, claiming he was treated like a prince and suggesting he was of royal blood. The mystery deepened with each retelling, the mask growing more elaborate in description, the theories more exotic. Alexander Dumas immortalized him in literature, weaving him into the adventures of the Three Musketeers and making him a twin brother of Louis XIV. Hollywood brought him to life on screen multiple times, each version adding new layers to the legend. But beyond the romance and adventure stories lies a more sobering truth about absolute power and state secrecy. The man in the iron mask represents the ultimate expression of royal authority, the power to erase a person's identity completely while keeping them alive as a living ghost. His story reminds us that in the grand palace of Versailles, beneath all the gold and crystal and magnificent ceremonies, there were dungeons where inconvenient truths could be buried alive. The Sun King's light was so bright that it created the deepest of shadows, and in those shadows a man lived and died without ever showing his face to the world. Today, as we walk through the restored halls of Versailles or visit the ruins of the Bastille, we might remember that somewhere in those stones lies the echo of the greatest mystery in French history. The man in the iron mask may be gone, but the questions he embodied remain. How far will power go to protect its secrets? What makes a person's identity so dangerous that it must be completely erased? And in our modern world of surveillance and state secrecy, are there still men and women living behind masks of their own? The velvet mask has long since crumbled to dust, but the mystery it concealed continues to fascinate us 3 centuries later, reminding us that sometimes the most powerful stories are those where the truth remains forever hidden in shadow.